Ben, as a starting point, I guess my question is, what did you think this experience was going to be coming into it, and what did it actually become for you?
So I never like to set my expectations too high. The goal is always set them as low as possible. And so when I first signed up for this, I was like, well, at the very least, I'm going to get free food, free lodging, and enough spaciousness to get work done with a decent Wi-Fi connection. And what it ended up being was everything that I hoped for and more. I grew in ways that I didn't even know I needed to grow in. I made deep personal connections with people that just reading their bios, I did not think I was going to connect with. I was able to try things that I would never do normally. And I was able to, I think, just feel alive in a time where everything has felt so gray. And that's been fantastic.
In general, what surprised you the most? What was maybe like, and maybe what was like the happiest little surprise of the moment?
I think the thing I was most surprised about was how supportive the container was and how diverse the people are. I think my biggest fear coming in was that I'd be this skeptical weirdo that would overanalyze everything and not quite fit in. But there's such a diversity of expertise and knowledge that at the end of the day, it's not that everyone agrees on the same thing. Everyone's coming at these situations from a different perspective, but everyone has this deep respect and reverence for the other and where they're coming from. And so I think the thing that surprised me the most was how safe of a space was actually created. I think it comes from the fact that everyone, even though people may have diverging opinions about a situation, they come at it from a deep place of respect and reverence and the curiosity to just understand, well, why do you think this way? And that sort of questioning creates a container in which people can really be themselves and try things that they would never do otherwise. And I think within the first week, when an open mic happened and people were just coming up who weren't singers to perform, to read a poem, to share something they never shared before, and that vulnerability and seeing how supported they were and celebrated just for showing up and being themselves allowed me to get the permission very quickly to also feel that this was a safe place where I could explore situations in which I was uncomfortable, challenge the way things were happening. I still remember one conversation very early on with Brenton where he came straight up to me and said, hey, I just want you to know that last night you made me feel uncomfortable when you did this. And I was like, oh, I am so glad you felt comfortable enough to tell me that I made you feel uncomfortable yesterday, because I think most people would just not do that and move on. And so even when you face discomfort, there's this opportunity for growth and learning and exploration. And I think that really illustrates the power of actually spending time together. This idea that, I think we move through life at a breakneck pace. We go to conferences, we go to different events, and we're constantly jumping from one place to another. And that doesn't give you the time to explore a relationship. You can brush off a problem because you don't need to face it right now. You can just be like, I'm never going to see this person again. It's fine. But if you're going to co-live with someone for 30 days, now you may ignore them for a couple of days, but you may process it. You may learn something new. You may see them showing up in a different way. You may be able to have a conversation about it, and suddenly that relationship gets a chance to be deeper. So this container, this ability to have 30 days to explore something, for me, is what makes this really so special. And so coming in, one of the things that I was most excited about was the spaciousness that time would offer. And I'm really glad that I wasn't disappointed.
Then, in your mind, what is Experience House? Like, what are we doing here? And if you were to, it could be sort of like what you really see it as, and or how you would attempt to describe it to someone.
The interesting thing about when I first heard that Experience House was going to be a co-created event, I was like, why should I spend money to go to something where I'm going to have to work to create and curate things? And it turns out that when people create something because they want to share their gifts, because they want to invite others to participate, when they want to explore something brand new and to be vulnerable, it creates a completely different mood and tone than you would have if you just bought an experience. Because this isn't like something you buy into. It's almost something you say, hey, we are peers. Do you want to do something with me? And now what I have in mind is no longer what actually exists anymore. It's what we co-create together for them. And maybe that experience now gets to be co-created together. And so I think what's been really powerful for me is seeing the amount of remixing of knowledge, the intersections that would have never existed in any other container, and the trust and vulnerability and emotion that comes with it. I think when we consume events, we don't care as much as when we co-create events. And in the act of creating is learning, is growth, is risk, is experience, it's experiment. And I think we tap into the deepest power of the arts, which isn't just the product itself, but the process. And so I would describe Experience House as a 30-day process in which you get to co-create with other experts in your field, and in doing so, co-create your own reality, your own future, and who you could become in ways that you would have never imagined possible.
Ben, can you tell me about some of the connections that you made here? Like, how did you experience these people? And you already articulated a little bit on that, but I'm wondering if you go deeper.
No, that's an interesting one. I think what matters most to me is what happens after the container closes, not what happened in this container. I feel like there have been many fantastic relationships that have been made. Every time I see someone's face as I walk around, I'm reminded of something they said, something they did, some thoughts it ignited inside of myself, some question that is now unanswered, some questions that are unanswered that I now need to dive deeper into. And I can ignite a conversation with them again. I can say, hey, can we sit down? Can we talk about that again? Can we explore this one more time? And once this container expires, what is left? What do I get to take away? How do we stay in touch? Where do we go? And for me, those relationships are the most important ones, because it is so easy to say, oh my gosh, I had the best time. You're fantastic. I really want to stay in touch with you. And I'll never hear from you again. And that's happened many times. So I've already made plans to go see a couple people. And so one of the interesting things before coming to Experience House was that I was searching for what to do with my life, but I didn't know which way to go exactly. Now, 4 weeks later, I figured it out. I'm going to start by trying to find an ideal community on where I want to live. And coincidentally, I can go visit some people. I have Reem in Mexico that I'm going to go check out at the end of January. There is Jeff in Puerto Rico, so I'm just going to go hang out with him for another month over there. There are a number of alumni that live in Lisbon, so I'm just going to go hang out with them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So right now, actually, what's really interesting about Experience House and the immediate takeaway is to figure out who is where, doing what, and who do they know, and how can I go live with them for a little while. So I think in some ways I'm extending my own Experience House experience, just so that I can spend more time with the people that I really appreciated. And for those who are somewhere that I don't want to live, I don't know. Maybe I have to convince them to tag along with me. We'll see. Yeah, it's gonna be a hard one. I do not know how to solve that problem yet. I think that I forgot how fun it can be to create stuff for the sake of creating it. As I've dived super deep into the social impact space, I have kept myself from doing anything that didn't feel like a proper allocation of resource and time. And I just basically don't play as much anymore. Sort of like I grew old in the last decade. And I let that happen. And I think this new reminder that play is important, that fantastic things can happen out of it. And I feel like I found a number of very fun and interesting playmates that I would like to continue creating with. Brenton being one of them. We've done a number of things together, and it's so easy to create with him. And it's always so clear and concise that I would love to keep that relationship alive somehow. Vince has been fun, more in service of him. I think the other musicians have also been more in service of, yeah, if I had to name, I think there are two people that I would probably really hope to stay in touch with. There'd be Brenton, because he's so fucking talented, and I think that we complement each other's skills really nicely, and our brains work similarly. And Jeff, because we have the same core interests in sustainability and human development, and that our networks and interests are actually super overlapping. So I have a feeling that even if we tried to avoid each other, we wouldn't be able to. So if I had to pick two, I think those would be the two. And then everyone else I just love, but we'll see. We'll see.
What kind of people do you think Experience House is made for? Who is this made for?
I think the people who thrived here were those who were simultaneously driven and motivated and inspired, but also those who wanted to be of service, who were curious, who were open-minded, who wanted to explore more, who wanted to see what could be if only, if we tried this, if we tried that, if I went to this class, if I listened to this person, if I talked to that person, right? There's this sense of wanting to connect with the other that I think tightly bonds the people who had the best experience. And in doing so, by listening to the needs of the others, they were able to create something or co-create something that was of value to the whole. I think this is for people who want to know what they don't know. And if you're curious to know what you don't know, and you want to learn that through play and co-creation and experimentation and exploration and an open mind, and not a bunch of books and personal development courses, I think this is a lot better and a lot more fun. And this might be the experience for you.
What, in your opinion, makes Experience House different? What makes it unique? What makes it different than anything else that exists?
So I've been thinking a little bit about this. I think that if we had gotten any random group of 30 people from a high quality network like Hatch, something similar like this would have happened, in the sense that there would be growth. Undeniably, in some way, shape, or form, deep relationships with form, friendships with form, and co-creation would happen. But I think what I really appreciated about Experience House and what I thought was really unique, I think there was a very interesting mixture of archetypes, of personalities, and mixtures of expertise. Like, oh, how convenient that one person loves to create nighttime musical experiences. So every night he'd be going around, carrying things around, like setting it up, putting a dance party together, and maybe it'd be morning, maybe it'd be night, and you wouldn't have to think about it. And oh, hey, it just so happens someone loves to do yoga trainings in the morning, and so now there's yoga trainings in the morning. Or and someone else loves to play music, and then now you have a whole musical experience that just layers on to everything else. And then someone else is like really into frameworks, and now they can offer a framework for all of these artists who haven't really thought about frameworks in the past. And so there's this sort of like interesting thing where there's very little redundancy of talent that I think is quite interesting, because in so many networks and communities, what you end up with is a lot of people who do sort of the same thing slightly differently, and there's nothing more boring than that, because everyone's sort of like a microcarbon copy of the other. And this diversity of thought and expertise and approach and strategies and ways of living and ways of being is what I think makes something like this so powerful. And so really what makes Experience House unique to me is the curation of it. And I don't know what the secret sauce is. I don't know if I'm getting invited back, but I know that it worked really well this time. So yeah, I think that's what's special about it. So I think Experience House really gives people permission to play. And I don't know, as an adult, you don't have those spaces to play. And I think there's something really interesting about the sense of play that creates trust. If you're just there for a mission, there is, by definition, sort of an extractive nature to what you're trying to do. Even if it's in service of something greater, then everyone's there on a very specific mission. Whereas here, I think the number of people that came with a mission, like myself, and decided, wait, that's not why we're here. We need to let go of the mission so that we can actually figure out why we're all here. And by letting go, actually finding out the things you didn't know you didn't know. Like that's magical. And I think it's magical because we've all felt this at some point in time, but we haven't felt it recently as adults. And so I think there's value to that. Just, yeah.
Expanding on that, I'm really curious about your perspective then on this, because I would think that someone like you might be skeptical of the value of this.
Yeah.
Because part of the idea is that it's emergent, and therefore we're saying, it could be like, well, why are you here? What exactly are you getting from it? And it's different for every person.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're saying we're all coming here to do a specific impact project. We're all here specifically to learn about certain skills.
So I'm always super skeptical when someone says, like, come join this transformative experience. It's going to change your life. Like, probably not. I'm very curious on my own. I learn, I study things. And so when I came into the container, I came in with my own mission. I was like, okay, yeah, marketing person. I'm sure maybe there's something cool here, but I'm just going to focus on like why I'm here, what's important to me. I know what my values are. I know what I'm working towards, and I am going to work on this thing. And if anything extra happens, that would be great. But then very quickly I realized that if I focused on this thing, I was missing all the magic that was happening on the side, and that it was, I can work on this thing anytime. There was something that just automatically replaced it. So it wasn't so much that, like, I think when you're a skeptic, I'm not a skeptic to be right. I'm a skeptic to protect myself from being disappointed and from wasting my time. And so I came in Experience House as a skeptic, feeling like all this transformative stuff was going to be quite woo-woo and not really my jam. Yet I also came in with enough curiosity to realize that even though this stuff might not be 100% my jam, there was a lot that I could learn here. And by suddenly plugging in all these different experiences from people I wouldn't normally take the time to hang out with, build trust with, get to know better, explore, and go deeper with, I suddenly realized that what's actually here outside of my sphere of knowledge has so much value that I couldn't have predicted. And so it made so much sense a week in to like take my little mission, put it aside and say, okay, I am here for a different reason. I'm here to figure out why I'm here. Like, who goes to another country for a month with a bunch of strangers? That's usually not someone who knows exactly what they're doing with their life. If they have like full clarity, full activation, there's some question in the back of our minds where we're questioning ourselves and why are we doing what we're doing? Are we doing it the best way? And I think those questions that push us to do these unconventional things make us the perfect candidate to come to something like this and to discover whatever it is we're looking for that we haven't been able to find in the conventional way. So somewhere in here is some magic. And you can stay skeptical as long as you want, but like it was so obvious to me by the first week that anyone who was still there working on their mission, I like kind of pulled them aside and I'm like, I know you have this mission, but I think you're missing out on the real potential of why you're here. So we put it another way. If you put time into creating something like a course, the value of what you're going to create is on a 1-to-1 ratio. It doesn't matter, you put 1 hour in, you're going to get 1 hour of labor back. But if you have a conversation with someone, or you co-create something, or you get an introduction to someone, now you're no longer on this like 1-to-1 time to effort ratio. You've suddenly kind of jumped forward into some other potential dimension of collaboration, which could unlock so much more than you could have ever expected. So
how are you leaving this house different than how you came in? How has your life or your business changed? How has this month affected you?
Well, I came in single and now I'm back with my partner of 7 years. I have a different relationship with myself. I came in believing that the best way to have a successful life is to work hard and to struggle, and that it was noble to sacrifice yourself. And I'm leaving with the idea that it makes a lot more sense to create a foundation on one where you love and cherish your abilities and skills and continuously strive to be better, and to rewrite the narrative of how I want my relationship to be with myself and to those closest to me. I came into this container not knowing what to do next, and now I have a plan of action, at least for the next 3 months, which feels really good. I came in dreading Christmas, which is going to be cold and dreary and wet. And now I'm actually quite excited to go back there because I have so much work to catch up on. And so I think it will be great that it's cold, dreary, and wet, and I can sit at a desk and work on my computer for a little while. I came in feeling actually fairly complete with no expectations, open to whatever would come. And I'm also leaving this container feeling very complete because I feel like I took care both of myself, of those around me, and have space for those who want to stay in contact. And so there's no sadness, just joy. I think joy in what happened, what could happen, and where it's all going. So I'm good. I'm in a good place right now. Actually, maybe that's something else that changed. I came in with a lot of anxiety. So anxiety for the future. And right now I come in feeling a lot more faith in myself, and so excitement for the future. That feels good.